We found this picture in an antique shop and wanted to find out who they were. Then we decided we wanted to visit their graves, which led us to an abandoned cemetery deep in the woods. We're going to show you how we found them, and we're going to show you how we did it. And then we're going to go over the #1 abandoned graveyard rule that you never want to break. So stick around.
In this video, we're going to be showing you the adventure that this couple sent us on.
So I found this picture hanging out in a box in the Spring Hill Antique Mall. If you've seen some of our other videos, then you'll have seen where that antique shop actually used to be an old basketball gym. When I found this picture, I noticed on the back that it says Noble Hill and wife Maymie Shepherd Hill. And while I was standing there, actually looking at the picture, I pulled out my phone, used Ancestry, and did a quick search, and I found what I think they were. So I went through the rest of the booth and found more pictures that had names on them. I found more pictures, but I also found a newspaper clipping in a little baggie that had 2 more pictures in it, like front and back. So this newspaper clipping was sandwiched in between the 2 pictures of these little kids. So I've got these pictures of 4 kids, 2 on each side, and so I took that with us. Actually, I found their picture in a box with several other pictures, but this couple stood out to me for some reason. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way Noble's looking at me, but it just made me want to figure out a little bit more about them. So we ran some errands that day, and a little while later, I decided to actually sit down and read the newspaper article while we're sitting in the parking lot. I think we were at a puppy adoption clinic or something like that.
That's what it was. Puppies.
We didn't get one. But what we did get was more clues. And in this newspaper article, there were several more names listed. And on the backs of the pictures of the 2 kids were their names, and they were all Hills. Spoiler alert, they were his siblings. But a lot of the names mentioned in the article I remembered seeing in the booth, so we had to go back. When we got back, I ended up buying like $80 worth of pictures because it was all the same family, and I had to see how they were all connected. On the back it says Noble Hill and wife Maymie Shepherd Hill. Now here's a tip. When you see a woman's name on old documents, whenever you see that middle name, it's most likely their maiden name. Shepherd, or Shepherdson as it turns out, was Maymie's maiden name. So I go to Ancestry and I plug in what we know. Noble Hill and Maymie Shepherd Hill. Here's what pops up. A marriage license in 1910 Marshall County, which just so happens to be where Lewisburg is, which is where the newspaper clip is from. So the newspaper clip is from Marshall County, and this couple was married in Marshall County. Probably the same people. Let's build a tree and see what happens. As always, I like to start with the BMDCs. Birth, marriage, death, census. Or as our friends across the pond like to call it, hatch, match, and dispatch.
Oh no.
So we already have the marriage. Let's see what comes up with the census. We'll check 1910 and Marshall County, since that's where the marriage license was issued. And check this out. Noble C. Hill and a mess of siblings, but also Maymie, who is listed as the daughter-in-law to the head of the household. There's Noble's new bride. I guess they were still living with the family for that year, and I'm not really that surprised. Look who else we find. Bruce, Clifford, Walter. The only person missing from our pictures that we got was Suella. So I'd say we're definitely on the right track. Now that we found them, we can go back a decade to 1900. And there is Suella. So we've got them all.
Noble Hill was born April 5th, 1882, and lived until January 28th, 1947. He was 64 years old. We reached out to the Marshall County Historical Society to see if there was any specific information regarding their family. Linda Potts is the historian there, and she is a phenomenal resource. She was able to gather up bits and pieces of Noble and Maymie's lives to use for our video. Noble took a lot of pride with his farming and his crops, because in September 1911, he won Best Wheat, Best Strawberry Corn, and he won $3.
Which is like $100 these days. Good for Noble.
Good for him. Maymie won second place for her cider. That had to be a lot of fun for them, especially since they had only been married for about a year.
They came in guns blazing that honeymoon year. Got married and decided to go crush it at the county fair.
I really kind of wonder what strawberry corn tastes like.
I have no idea what it even is.
Noble served on the county court for 35 years, the longest serving person at the time, and maybe still. He signed the resolution to honor the deceased Henry Horton, who died in 1934. He supported $40,000 in highway improvement bonds and officiated dozens of weddings. His obituary in the Lewisburg Tribune stated that Tennessee Governor Jim McCord attended his funeral. They served together on the Marshall County Court, and McCord was the mayor for 13 consecutive terms. Noble and Maymie were very busy people. They gave a lot to the town and county they lived in, but they never had children of their own. So we decided to go visit their grave and take a photo of their picture with the stones. But that turned out to be a lot harder than we expected.
That's where all the hills and everybody are. It's crazy. If you like this video so far, please consider giving us a like and a subscribe so that you don't miss the next ones coming up. Their burial is listed on their death certificates as Hill Cemetery, and a quick search on Find a Grave shows some pictures. But Google Maps road view ends right before the cemetery, which leads me to a very important point. Not all cemeteries are on public property. A lot of smaller family ones are on private property. You can't just wander onto private property without permission. There are some exceptions if you know that you are a direct descendant of someone who is buried there, but in general, don't do it. And even if you are the direct descendant, ask first before somebody calls the cops. I actually met up with a lawyer who specialized in, of all things, cemetery law. And of course, I asked him a bunch of questions about this, and he said that there are countless stories of people wandering onto old cemeteries and even using bolt cutters to cut open the gates and, tearing up the stones and that kind of stuff. But in general, if you're not supposed to be there, you're gonna have to ask first. But this is why I checked and double checked to make sure that this property was owned by the county. And if you zoom in with Google Maps, it will show you general property outlines. And you can use this to help cross-reference property ownership with the county you're in by either checking your state's tax assessor website or calling your county deeds office. But in the case of Hill Cemetery, it is public property owned by the county. So we're good to go check it out.
We drove there, and when we got there, it was surprisingly well maintained. Wasn't sure what to expect, but it was better than many other small family cemeteries we visited. But there was something pretty important missing when we went walking around. We didn't see Noble and Maymie Hill. So we started to walk back to the car when I was looking and noticed something in the woods next to the clear area we were in. It was a stone in the woods, the real woods, not a park trail or anything, but the ticks and chiggers kind.
Yeah, it was all underbrush and
poison ivy.
Yeah. So once Alicia saw these stones in the woods, I decided it would be a good idea to double check the property lines and make sure that that area of woods wasn't outside of county property. And it was fine. We were still on public property. So we grabbed the deet and off we went. It was pretty somber. This was a cemetery of people completely lost to time. I imagine one day we'll all be there, but these were relatively recent. This wasn't a collection of 1700s burials. The most recent burial was in the 1940s. And this one jumped out at us. I wanted to move the log off the stone, but I didn't want to find out that it was holding the stone in place and make it worse. This is stillborn son of Craig and Ida Moore, born and died August 8th, 1920. Craig and Ida have 2 children in 1930. And Craig was a World War I veteran.
When we were in the woods, the more we looked around, the more stones we saw that were halfway buried underground, trees growing over them. It's like the longer you looked, the more you saw, and it was really hard to look at.
There were dozens in there. There were more than in the cleared area. I mean, I didn't expect to go up into the woods and find a gated-in family plot. There were 2 of them, actually. There were cairns and, holes in the actual burial spots. Of course, a lot of the graves were sunken in. It was pretty surreal. I didn't expect to find that. Going from a picture in a basketball gym to the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. It was kind of wild.
Once we were in the woods, we found Noble and Maymie. And Noble's mom, Cornelia, and 2 of his sisters, Laura and Sue Hill, neither of whom ever married or had children.
It was around this time that the gentleman who lived at the end of the road came by to see what was up.
Do we need to go back down there? I'll never forget the sinking feeling as I saw him drive up to us.
It was mixed emotions. I was like, we're safe to be here, but are we safe to be here?
It was still a little scary.
But no, Mr. Jack came by just to make sure we weren't up there doing something we weren't supposed to do. But when he saw the cameras and the gear and everything, he said, "Oh, hey, what can I tell you?" And so I ended up standing there and talking to this man for 45 minutes. And he was so nice. He was kind of excited that we were there, honestly, that we were there talking about the people who were buried. And I had a million questions for him. I wanted to put him on camera, but he wasn't up to it. So suffice it to say, we had a long chat. And the highlights were that I asked him, how did this cemetery get so overgrown? How did that happen? And he said that it was already like that when his family moved in the 60s.
Wow.
Yeah, the most recent stone in that cemetery was in the 40s. So that it only took 20 years.
20 years.
It doesn't take that long for Earth to reclaim. And he said it was already too far gone to really take care of by then. But this goes back to the number 1 rule that I mentioned. Never go on to small cemeteries or seemingly abandoned cemeteries without permission. Always check to make sure that you're either on public property or you've already talked to the people who live there. It was a family area that went unnoticed by the county for 20 years or so. It was bad. But he is the man responsible for keeping the clean area clean. He's been handling that for decades now. So that's pretty awesome. Hill Cemetery, the part that we were exploring in the woods, is so far gone that it would take a very expensive and professional crew to go in there and take care of it.
Even some of the graves there, I feel like their gravestones had fallen over onto the tops of the graves. And I feel like if you lifted them up.
Oh, yeah. And he said, actually, that there was a man in the 1990s, who had come out there and told him that he was going to work on cleaning it up. And he said, I saw him come out a few days a week for about 3 weeks, and he did pretty well. And then he never saw him again. So it would be pretty overwhelming for any one person. But what a great guy. Jack, if you get a chance to see this video, thanks for all the info. And thanks for keeping that hill cemetery nice and clean.
So after some literal legwork, we found the final resting place of the people in the pictures we found. And like always, the journey created more questions than answers. We hope the Hills had a fulfilling life, staying busy for their community. And if they had any worries of being forgotten, well, I guess that's not an issue for a little while longer.